Jim Pinkerton, the great Jim Pinkerton, is sitting somewhere behind a computer screen. He's in the bunker with Dick Cheney and Cal Thomas, no doubt, by the looks of things. Jim, good to see you. Bias Bash today, the IRS story bubbling up again, but not bubbling up to the extent, perhaps, that you feel it should, given what we have recently learned.
Right, I agree, and thank you, Jonathan. It's nice to be back. Look, the IRS business first erupted in May, and now here we are in mid-September, and I think the smoking gun has been emerged in the latest batch of emails from Lois Lerner and others at the IRS, including the point that the trigger for investigations would include, quote, anti-Obama rhetoric. Okay, so that is if you're a Tea Party group that or other conservative or constitutionalist group that is known to emit, quote, anti-Obama rhetoric, then the IRS would flag you. That's pretty open and shut. And in fact, as Greg Court of USA Today, who was one of the very few reporters to really give the story the attention it deserved, 80% of the cases that the IRS examined were in fact conservative right-of-center groups. As Jay Sekulow of the American Center for Law and Justice said, this is the quote, the most powerful evidence yet of a coordinated effort, unquote, by the IRS to target Tea Party groups. And that's a big story. It's a scandal. It involves the IRS. It involves free speech, the First Amendment, which allegedly the media are all up in arms about. And yet, interestingly enough, or although perhaps not surprisingly enough, the mainstream media buried it, as Jeffrey Dickens at Newsbusters pointed out. None of the three broadcast networks touched the story. It ran on USA Today on the 18th, which is Wednesday, and the broadcast networks didn't touch it either the night before or that night. In fact, as Dickens calculated, it's been 85 days since ABC News last touched the story, 56 days since CBS touched it, and also 84 days for NBC. So in other words, the networks have just decided to, quote, as trying to phrase, move on away from the story.
And Jim, the idea that they might put forward that this has been a really busy news week with the Navy Yard shooting, developments in Syria and the chemical weapons, the ongoing argument over chemical weapons, that no excuse in your book. There's plenty of pages in a newspaper or minutes in a TV broadcast to
right. I watch at least two of the three broadcast network newses every night, and they have plenty of time for every other kind of story imaginable, and good for them. I mean, we should cover a broad range of news, but they just seem to have kind of a blind spot when it comes to this. And if you compare it to, say, the way the media covered Watergate 40 years ago, where it was, and I can remember as a kid watching Walter Cronkite's newscast, and the entire half-hour show was Watergate, Nixon this, Nixon that, and so on. And of course, in the process of covering it, they've uncovered more stuff, which is the way the journalistic process should work. And instead, you see this complete listlessness among the mainstream media. Now, as Matt Hadrow, also at Newsbusters, pointed out, CNN did cover it once. They covered it at 5 a.m. Not exactly prime time unless you're in Japan. I mean, look, this is not the only story. You're quite right, Jonathan. Syria, floods in Colorado. You can make a long list of stories that merit attention. But the broadcast networks have 7 hours, 7 times 30 minutes a week each, and they can find some time. They just don't seem to be able to do it, and I think that's a very clear case of bias on their part. They're simply deciding that the IRS story is not important to them, not important to telling the truth and covering the story, and revealing the full portrait of the Obama presidency.
All right, Jim Pinkerton, contributing editor and writer with the American Conservative magazine, and of course Fox News contributor. We missed you, Jim. Come back to the studio soon. Great to see you, sir. Have a wonderful weekend.
You too.